Warning, this content is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All right, folks, Big Paul here today with another anabolic Q&A. I got some good ones lined up for you today. I have a question about what can you expect when you first start running GH? What are you going to feel? What are you going to notice? What are you going to get from running HGH? Also, how much muscle gain can a Masters competitor, say over 50, expect to have on a year-to-year basis as a Masters competitor? My thoughts on fasting, water fasting for bodybuilding. Possible causes of high creatinine levels in bodybuilders and how to fix it. All of these questions are from my Team Anabolic Bodybuilding members site. You can join that for $30 a month, where you have access to articles, free coursework, and some other stuff. I also answer questions over there daily. We have a forum where people participate. Over 100 members now. It's $30 a month. I know some guys gripe about the $30 a month charge. I promise you it's well worth it. I answer your questions. I put your questions up on YouTube. I have over 100 members over there right now. It's a really great community. Bros, you spend more than that on energy drinks, $5 a pop. Just drink a couple less energy drinks and you can have access to expert knowledge and get your questions on the live Q&A and support my channel. I also have the sale on the Science of Anabolics and PEDs e-course still going right now. You can get $100 off. Just use the code USA at checkout, and it's $100 off. There's over 60 hours of content there from researcher Kurt Havens and myself. We put a lot of work into it, 100 plus courses. So if you want the deep dive into the dark arts of anabolics, where bro science meets real science, we have all of that up there for you. And enough of that stuff. Let's dig into those questions in just 1 second. All right, first question I got up here is from my client, Paul Robinson. Paul asks, as an older competitor, which body parts have you found respond the best to higher volume and or frequency? Smaller muscles like calves and rear delts versus hamstrings, adductors, for example. Well, I think it varies from person to person. You really just kind of have to be in tune with your body and understand your body and how your body responds to things. What I've noticed is like smaller body parts, like, for example, like your arms. You can beat the fuck out of your arms. You can probably train them every day, to be honest with you. I know there's some stories about Lee Priest training arms every day, and dude had some of the biggest arms I've ever seen. I would say things that you probably need to be a little more careful with. I as an older bodybuilder, and I'm going through it right now with my shoulder. Most older bodybuilders end up with shoulder injuries, and their shoulders and elbows get all beat the fuck up from doing heavy compound pressing movements. That would be my speculation. Pulling and pressing movements really tear up the shoulder joint. So I would be careful with anything that it would be heavy compound upper body movements, like let's say barbell rows, bench presses, shoulder presses, things like that. Probably you can't get away with as much volume, and you need to allow a little more recovery when you're doing those big compound movements, especially if you're moving bigger weights. I don't really do a lot of that stuff anymore. I just find that the juice is not worth the squeeze anymore. Not saying that you can't do them. You really just have to find what works for your body and what you can tolerate. But for me, I generally just stay away from those for the most part. I'll sprinkle them in once in a while. I find that my quads used to be that I used to do a lot of heavy barbell squats and things like that. And I have noticed as I've gotten older, I've been able to grow my legs, and a lot of older guys struggle with growing their legs. And when I started growing my legs is when I backed off the weights a little bit, started doing a little more volume and a little more reps, and training my legs twice a week. And when I stopped squatting, when I stopped doing heavy hack squats, when I stopped doing all that stuff and then started doing things like leg presses, sissy squats, lunges, split squats, stuff like that, I started growing my legs again. They came back to life, and they started growing again. So that's another area. Hamstrings seem to be very, very sensitive to volume. I've noticed that hamstrings, they're kind of contrary to the quads. They don't seem to tolerate volume well. You have to be careful with those as well. Calves, you could probably beat the fuck out of. I mean, you're walking on them all day long anyway. Calves are probably something that you could beat the fuck out. Heavy things like for your back you have to be really careful with as well. But I would say arms, quads, probably are something that respond better when you're an older guy to volume. Abs are something that you could do with more volume and frequency and get away with. All right, next question here is from Alan Evans. Alan asks, hey, Paul, if you have been quite overweight a few times in your life, obviously you can get new fat cells, but do they ever completely leave once you get below sub 10% body fat, or do they just shrink? Will your skin ever be as thin as someone who's never been 20% body fat before? Skin thinness really doesn't have a whole lot to do with being fat for the most part. It's genetic. It's how thick the dermis is, how much collagen your skin has. I have sort of shitty skin as far as elasticity goes. And this is, typical for most white dudes, guys that are Northern European descent. You can look at the guys that get paper thin skin on stage. They're usually white dudes with shitty skin. They're the ones that get, they're the ones that get the paper thin skin on stage. Dorian Yates would be an example. The German guys, all the German bodybuilders, they tend to get, my genetics are mostly German and Scandinavian. I have some Scottish sprinkled in there, but I'm a mixed bag of Northern European genetics, and I get really thin skin. So that really, we can just rule that out. That's largely genetic, and I've been fat a few times in my life, and I've been able to get paper thin skin on stage. So some of that's just genetics. Now, as far as the fat cells go, once you have them, they're there. There really is, they're either going to shrink or expand. The only way to get rid of it, if you want to get rid of those fat cells once they are there, is to just go get some liposuction done. And trust me, it is very common in bodybuilding. A lot of guys don't talk about it. Shit ton of guys go get liposuction done. I've had it done. I had it done on my gyno, and I had my love handles done. I used to have, from when I was a teenager, I had this lower back fat that would creep out into my love handles, and I got my love handles done. I kind of had this hourglass shape. I hated it. Should have gotten my lower back done too when I did it. Maybe I'll go back in and get that touched up at some point. But yes, I had that done as well. It's in my gyno. It's not that uncommon in bodybuilding, and I would say if you struggle with those areas and those areas are trouble areas for you, spend a little money. Go get some lipo done, be done with it, never have to worry about it again. All right, next one here is from Philip Fuller. Philip asks, I have two, feel free to answer one or the other or neither questions. Philip, I liked both of your questions, so I'm going to answer both of them. One, when on a cut, how do you adjust your macros, and by how much do you reduce your carbohydrates when fat loss tends to slow down or halt? Part two, when on a massing phase while using gear, how much weekly weight gain should a person expect? I know a lot of the wet anabolics like D-Bol, Anadrol, Deca will cause weight to shoot up. When the weight goes up by 8 pounds in 4 to 5 weeks, what's the best way to assess how much is water weight, fat, and muscle? All right, so let's go with part one here first. These questions correlate. When on a cut, I try to keep as much food in as I can get away with. Sometimes I'll come out of the gate and be a little aggressive up front and then put a little food back in towards the end. But we really, as far as losing fat, we have a couple levers we can pull. We do know that we need to have a net negative energy balance to lose fat. I mean, it's just an undeniable fact of science. Well, first law of thermodynamics is yet to be disproven. If you could do it, you would win a Nobel Prize and create limitless energy for the entire planet. Thus far, no bro has done that. If you're the one to do it, go, don't pass, go collect your check, all that bullshit. Probably slaughtered that. But anyway, we need to create a net negative energy balance, and we know that there are a couple ways to do that. We can increase energy expenditure through exercise, more cardio, more lifting, more movement. That's one way. We could lower calories. That's another way. We can use fat burning agents, which are going to increase metabolic rates to burn fat and change the scale in that direction. When it comes to calories, we have really two areas where we can yank calories. We can pull carbohydrates out if we need to increase a deficit. We can yank fats out if we need to increase deficits. I never pull the protein down. Protein is, essential if you want to maintain good body composition. I guess in theory you could take the protein out, but you're probably not going to like how you look. You're going to be a skinny fat marshmallow. You're probably not going to look so good. Carbs are probably the easiest ones to yank. Fats, there's only so low you can take fats before you start to have problems. You do need some essential fatty acids, a little bit of saturated fat, just a tiny bit for bile production. Everybody's worried about hormone production from fats. That's not an issue for us because we're getting our hormones from a 3cc needle. We don't need to worry about that. And I've yet to see anybody deficient in cholesterol, which is all steroidal hormones are derived from the cholesterol molecule, so we don't have to worry about that. So just rule that out of your head. So really, we have carbohydrates and fats. Carbohydrates are the easiest ones to yank. Carbohydrates are, you'll hear people say they aren't essential, but you do need some carbohydrates for central nervous system function and kidney function and other bodily functions. Your body will make them on its own. If you remove them completely, through gluconeogenesis, it could also run on ketones a bit. So really, carbs are the easiest place to pull calories first. I personally do not like taking carbs much below 150 grams per day for an adult male. We might run 1 or 2 zero carb days per week on a carb cycling diet when we're in a caloric deficit. Usually the first place I am going to yank the carbs when I do a carb cycling diet for somebody is on that low carbohydrate day. We're going to use that for fat burning. I will leave fats in place, a certain amount of fats. I put added EFAs in. I only yank them as a last resort. We keep the saturated fats as low as possible. If I can pull the saturated fats down, for example, if we start off a diet and people are eating fattier cuts of meat, like let's say if they're eating 90-7 beef, eating steak, eating fattier fish, stuff like that, whole eggs, that would be one area where we could pull some calories from to create a deficit. So I start there. So really, you got to pick your poison. You either eat less or do more cardio. I really fucking hate cardio. I would rather eat less than do more cardio, but there are people that would prefer to just do more cardio than to eat less. So really pick your poison there, which one you want. Now for the off season, we got to think about it. Like when you make that switch from cutting to the off season, you're going to have an initial bounce in weight, and that's mostly just going to be mineral and glycogen retention and all these other things. When you first start a cycle, you're probably going to gain 8 to 10 pounds. That is not contractile tissue. You don't gain real muscle tissue that quickly. But what that's doing is laying the framework down, kind of setting us up for muscle tissue growth, actual contractile tissue growth over the longer period of time in our off season. So that initial, 5-10 pounds that you gain is likely just going to be water weight and it's going to come off as soon as you shift back into a deficit and become glycogen depleted. Shift your compounds over towards ones that are drier, are going to cause less mineral retention, water and mineral retention. Making the shift from, let's say, from like Deca over to Masteron or something like that. So we have to keep that into consideration. Now, when it comes to the off season for weight gain, I don't get too obsessed with the scale. Look, we kind of want it to go up, but it's always this balance of watching the progress pics in the scale. We want the scale to go up, but not forsake body composition too much. Like the upper limit of what I like to allow my body composition to get is where I can still see an outline of my abs. If I'm past that point, I it's time to pull back. It's going to make it too hard to cut down. And the deeper of a deficit you have to go into to get the body fat off, the more risk you're at of losing muscle tissue. Even on PEDs, you could still lose muscle tissue when you shift into a diet phase. So really, when it comes to the off-season phase, I take a look at the pictures and I let them dictate our progress. A lot of guys get very disappointed. They won't see their weight change. I recently had my guy, Dr. Nick, who competed and won an overall at the this past weekend at the South Central or whatever it was. It was in Louisiana. I don't remember the name of the show. Anyway, Nick has pretty much been the same weight on the stage the last 3 years, but his body is completely transformed. He's way denser than he was. He's way harder than what he was. He just looks like a different fucking person. So pictures matter more to me than anything, and that's what I use to gauge progress. Now, you do want the scale to go up. You do want to be as aggressive as you can be with the food. I like to take up the food as I go on an off season and find out what the upper limit of what we can get away with without getting fat. We want to turn our body into a food processing machine if we can. That's going to make the dieting phase that much easier if you can get your metabolism higher in an off season by slowly ticking up the food. But usually the wild card for me, whether I'm bulking or whether I'm cutting, is moving carbohydrates up or down. I pretty much leave fat the same year round. I may cut fats out towards the end of a contest prep when we have nothing else left to pull if we need to dig really deep, but otherwise I pretty much leave fats in place. I leave protein in place. I run moderate to low fats anyway, so there's not a lot of room to pull fats anyhow. So carbohydrates are the wild card for both the off season and contest prep. And a lot of guys will push their fats high in the off season. It's really not, fats don't really contribute a whole lot to muscle building. Like guys are like, I gained a bunch of weight when I pushed my fats way up. Well, yeah, it was probably fat. you probably just got fat. You didn't actually gain muscle. Now, if you're on a lower carbohydrate diet, now, yeah, that's a little bit different. But if you have high carbs and high fat present at the same time, your body's going to prioritize glucose as its main fuel source. What do you think is going to happen to all those excess fats that you're eating? Those are already prepackaged lipids ready to just be stored as adipose tissue. There's only one possible outcome that's going to happen. If you eat in a surplus and you have a bunch of extra fats, they're not really contributing anything to muscle building. They can't be stored as glycogen like carbohydrates can. So any caloric surplus from fats is just going to be stored as fat. Simple as that. Zach Holmes asks, assuming you're starting from a lean physique, how would you structure a year plus off season to make the most and hit the stage the following year with a more impressive physique? I do not like year plus off seasons. I just do not. I'm going to say that right now. I'm going to state that. Trust me, guys always arguing with me about this. I've tried it. It doesn't fucking work. When you take more than a year to be in a bulk and a caloric surplus, eventually all that happens is you just start getting fatter. You hit this point where your body just says, nope, I'm done growing muscle. I'm just going to get fat. Even with taking a bunch of PEDs. Insulin resistance rises. Gastric emptying slows down. Your body just starts to rebel. Myostatin probably goes up. All of these counter-regulatory systems in place that prevent hypertrophy start to take place. So really, I think the most productive way to do things if you are a bodybuilder and you want to grow is to do one hard cut per year. What would make the most sense to me is just get on the stage and compete. I know a lot of bros try to wait years and years and years. They want to wait until they have a national level physique to get on stage to compete, but that's the wrong time to do it, man. You need to learn how to prep. You need to learn how to prepare for a show. You need to learn how to pose. You need to get over the butterflies of getting on stage. You need to make it second nature. You need to learn what it's like to travel and do a show. And if you wait until you think you have a pro-ready physique, you're going to be behind the eight ball, man. You're not going to be able to stand up on stage and compete with the guys that have been doing this and have experience. The best way to get better at competing is to fucking compete. So I would say get on stage, compete once a year. For the off season, what I like to run is probably a 20-week off season if you can get away with it. That's 16 to 20 weeks. Usually that's about when the wheels start to fall off. Then you pull back and cruise, probably for 6 to 8 weeks, and then you shift into your 16-week contest prep phase. Get ready for your show, get absolutely shredded, and then post-show you have a 6 to 8 week rebound phase where you put a bunch of tissue back on, a bunch of size back on, cruise again, get ready for another off season. That's the process that I like to do, the blast and cruise process that I use. I have it all detailed in the PED cycle cheat sheet that I have. If you want to pick that up, it's all detailed there, how I run it. And I have found this process to work fantastically. This is how I put on something like 70 pounds of stage weight in 5 years. And I've done this process with my clients as well, and it just works. If you don't believe me, go try it. Next question here is from George Peterson. Can you please detail the changes, physical, mental, emotional, that happen and when they happen when starting and titrating up on a growth hormone protocol? I started with 1 unit 3 weeks ago. We'll go to 2 units next week and would like to know what changes you anticipate. Plus, I want to determine if my source is solid. Thus far, all I've noticed is an increase in vascularity, similar to what is experienced with TRT. Sleep quality has not improved, nor has alertness. Neither have any of the other promised benefits have been realized. Well, George, my friend, Rome wasn't built in a day. You are an impatient motherfucker, George. You're only 3 weeks in on 1 unit per day. I don't know what you were expecting to happen from three weeks with 1 unit per day. 1 unit is a very, very, very low dose. That's maybe not even a replacement dose. That's usually where I would say start off for people if you're just a TRT kind of guy. And then slowly titrate up to make sure you don't have hand numbness, to make sure that you're not getting a bunch of water retention, you're not having all the nasty side effects that can happen to people sometimes. That kind of the sweet spot for a replacement dose of GH, what I would consider replacement dose, is somewhere in the 2 to 4 units, maybe up to 5 units. But 2 to 4 seems to be for the gym bro. If you just want sort of the nice effects that you get from GH, enhanced recovery, improved body composition, shift to lipid metabolism, all of those things. North of 5 units is where we get into sort of the super physiological range, more the bodybuilding type dosing, which if you're not a guy that's trying to compete, probably completely unnecessary to go that high. GH is a slow burn. It's not like running Tren or D-ball where within a week that you're on it. Hopefully you don't notice you're on it, because if you do notice you're on it, you're probably getting all the side effects that people are trying to avoid. Like I said, the hand numbness, the bloating, that sort of thing. I would say, look, GH is a slow burn. You'll notice over a time, like you have to commit to GH. GH is a commitment. I would say over 6 months to a year. If you look at your pictures from where you were at now to 6 months ago, after running it for 6 months, let's say 2 to 4 units or something like that. This is not my recommendation for what you should do, but this is typically what I see. After that period of time, you'll probably notice that your body composition has improved. You probably will notice that you have increased performance in the gym. You'll probably notice that your fullness is a little bit better. Your recovery will be enhanced. GH really has, from what my experience, has very little impact, if any at all, on your mood. It doesn't seem to have any impact on your mood. It can make you a little tired if the doses are higher. It seems to help with sleep once you push the doses up. Some people get that effect, some people don't. It doesn't mean it's not real. Now, if you're concerned about the quality of your GH, send it off for testing. That's the simple and easiest way to find out if it's real. You find a lab, send it off for testing, determine if it's real. If you're using generic GH, if you're getting it prescribed, and God help you, it should be real if you're spending all that money. But GH is a slow burn. Don't expect overnight effects from it. Don't expect miracles from it. It's a slow burn. It's something that you have to commit to over a period of time. I'll be honest with you, like I didn't really notice a whole lot from it the whole first year I ran it. And then I noticed after the second year, I noticed that there was just a change in my physique. I found that it was easier to stay lean. I found that my sleep and recovery were improved. I found that little nagging injuries that I had kind of got better and healed up. Healing from surgeries and things like that is a little bit faster, but it's not like something that you're going to sit there and notice. You're not going to feel like Superman. You're not going to have the adrenaline rush. You're not going to have the trend rage. You're not going to have a change in your mood. You're not going to have a change in your demeanor. You're not going to have immediate increase in performance in the gym. It's not like other things. GH is a slow burn. Be patient, my friend. Next question is from Aaron G. Aaron asks, I am doing a cut to set up for a bulk. What in-between phase should I complete before the bulk? Please describe and highlight the phase. PED, de-escalation, caloric adjustments, length of phase, etc. Aaron, this sort of is a follow-up to the question that I did earlier about bulking and cutting. What I like to do is, if you're cutting, is to get exotically lean, get as lean as you possibly can. If you're not a competitor, you don't necessarily need to be stage lean, like 6% body fat, where the glutes are shredded. But I would say get as lean as you can handle. The leaner you are, the more runway you're going to have to put on size. I would try to get down into single-digit body fat if possible. 8% is probably a good target for the average gym bro. 8 to 10, somewhere around there. Depends on how high you're starting. If you're starting at 25%, maybe you just want to cut down to 12. But what I would say is that, get yourself lean. When you come out of that lean phase, then you're going to shift into a rebound phase for usually 6 to 8 weeks, where we push the food back up. We leave the PEDs in place. Usually I lower the PEDs myself when I shift into a rebound phase after a cut. I drop all the fat burners. I taper off of them. I drop any of the toxic compounds like orals or tren. And what I will do is just leave test in a basic anabolic in place. Probably something like equipoise, equipoise, or potentially Masteron or Primobolan if you can find them right now. I used to do DECA sometimes, or MPP, sorry. And then I would run that for that 6 to 8 week phase at lower doses than when I was on the cut. And you're going to have a period of time, about, like I said, 6 to 8 weeks, where your body's going to grow rapidly. And then when you hit the end of that, sort of the wheels start to fall off and body composition will start to decline. And at that point, what I would do is just pull back and go into a cruise, allow my body to breathe a little bit, pull the calories back down a bit, and go on a cruise for about 6 to 8 weeks, allow my health to recover, and set myself up for an off season. Once I get through that cruise phase, then I go into a longer haul off season. And if I've done things properly, I should have put a fair amount of weight back on, not gained a bunch of body fat, and have myself ready to go for a productive off season phase where I can continue to grow and add on muscle tissue, kind of the slow grind phase. The rebound phase is usually the funnest because that's when you're going to grow the most in the shortest amount of time. When you come out of that cruise afterwards for the off season, it's a fucking grind. So you have to be patient. Bodybuilding is the ultimate sport of patience. My friend George, who asked the question before about the HGH, not feeling anything after 3 weeks, man, this stuff takes years. You have to be consistent. You have to be dedicated. You have to grind away at this shit for years. There are no overnight results. There are no shortcuts. Even with the PEDs, you have to be patient. You have to be consistent. You have to be willing to grind. And if you aren't, you're not going to see results. All right, next question here is from Scott Brinkman. Scott asks, what are your thoughts on water fasting 1 day per week on a regular basis? As an older competitor, this feels right to offset the constant pounding the body with foods and PEDs. Scott, I used to be a guy that was against fasting. And on paper, fasting doesn't make sense for growing, for hypertrophy. When you're in a starvation state, your body's probably going to be catabolic. You're not going to grow muscle, and I wanted to optimize and grow muscle as much as I possibly can. But what I found out as I've gotten older is sometimes my stomach just needs a fucking break, man. If for nothing else, I don't know that there's any real magic to fasting, and then there's the fasting cult out there that think it, does everything, cures cancer, pays your taxes, mows your lawn, does all that shit for you. Look, look, I don't think it works miracles, but I have found when I take breaks, as somebody who has IBS and struggled with IBS over the years, when I have a low day, a low energy expenditure day, what I will do is just not eat for 24 hours. I'll eat my last meal, say at 8 p.m. the night before. And if I'm off training that day, I'll take an entire day and not eat. And then I'll eat again. I'll have like a big steak and a potato again, 8 o'clock the following evening, and just drink water that day. That gives my gut a chance to reset. That gives my body a break. I feel a lot better. My digestion is improved. I'm hungry. I'm ready to eat at that point. You probably, if you're concerned about muscle loss, if your stomach is, in optimal health, you could probably just do a protein fast where you're just eating protein throughout the day. And that's what they use in extreme cases in hospitals when they're trying to get morbidly obese people to lose weight. They'll do a protein sparing modified fast where they just have these people just eat nothing but protein. That would be a potential alternative to that. But if you need to give your gut a break, then just take 24 hours off from eating. I found that I didn't really lose any muscle. It's maybe not the most optimal way to grow, but it did keep my gut in check. It did help me recover my digestion on that off day when I was struggling with digestion. I found it to be very productive. All right, next question here is from Jake Maurer. Jake says, as an older bodybuilder, 160 pounds, 10% body fat, amateur bodybuilder who might compete for fun someday in their mid-50s, what are some examples of realistic goals if you're not genetically gifted nor a hyper responder to PEDs and you want to get to 180 pounds at 10% body fat? Well, that's 20 pounds of muscle tissue. It's a lot of tissue, even if you're a normal young person trying to gain muscle. Think about adding 20 pounds worth of steak to your body. Think about what 20 pounds of steak looks like in a shopping cart and then slapping that on your body. You're going to be completely transformed if you can add 20 pounds. Now, could most people over 50 add 20 pounds of muscle? I don't know. Depends on your genetics. I would say if you're not genetically gifted, probably not. It is possible. It is within the realm of possibility. I've seen people do it. But if you've been on PEDs and you've been if you've been training for a while and you haven't grown that much, it's unlikely. I would put it in the category of unlikely. Now, if you have everything optimized, potentially. Now, we can look at what realistic rates of muscle gain are. I've talked about this a million freaking times. Nick Walker, a dude gained something like 100 pounds over an 8-year period of time. I don't know the exact number. So Nick, I apologize if I'm botching that, but it was somewhere around there. So the best case scenario is averaging 12 pounds of muscle per year, 1 pound of muscle per month. And that is the genetic anomaly, the guy who has everything optimized in his 20s. Now, for an older competitor, I would say if you can add a couple pounds per year, a guy that's over 50, I've had some of my over 60 guys add a couple, add stage weight, add muscle mass. If you can do 2 or 3 pounds per year, that's really cooking. You're going to, I know it sounds disappointing. If you could do 5 pounds a year, that would be excellent. You're going to look a lot different when you get on stage if you added 5 pounds of steak to your body. If you can add 10 pounds, that would be extreme. So I would say, look, 3 to 5 pounds of real stage weight per year. The only way to find out is to actually get out there and compete. Get yourself into the habit of competing and try it out. Go do the process, see what happens, and see how things shake out. You don't know until you try. Chris Gelball asks, what digestion aids or gut health strategies would you implement during a gain phase as calories increase? I think a lot of guys are often looking for gut aids, pills, things they can take to be able to eat more, be able to increase digestion, when they really should be taking a look at their diet first and the root causes of what is causing the gut issues, what things you're doing with your lifestyle, with your food choices, with your PED choices, with the supplements that you're taking that could potentially agitate your gut and cause digestion problems. I would start there first and suss those things out. I do have some strategies for off-season for digestion. What I would say is, look at your supplements. Most of us take way too many supplements, and I was going through my list of supplements, and I did a supplement elimination. I just basically stopped everything. I was having a lot of acid reflux problems, and I found out the berberine was causing me to have acid reflux. I was slowly adding things back in. I wanted to suss out if it was some of the supplements that I was taking that was causing acid reflux. Well, goddamn it was berberine that was fucking my stomach up. It was giving me acid reflux, really messing my stomach up. It was really, really jerking my stomach around. Now, keep in mind, it may not have that effect on you. I have a very sensitive stomach. I find berberine to be a very effective supplement. It works really well for increasing insulin sensitivity, but I had to cut it out because it was messing my stomach up. A lot of guys also eat high FODMAP foods, and they don't realize they're eating them, that are going to cause gas, bloating, and distension. One huge offender I see every bodybuilder eat, and it's probably one of the worst choices for vegetables you could possibly eat, is broccoli. Broccoli will fuck you up, man. Oh my God, broccoli will fuck you up. Other common offenders I see in the off season is guys start relying too much on protein shakes. And protein shakes can cause a lot of gut problems, especially if you're drinking shittier, cheaper protein shakes that aren't highly processed or highly filtered whey isolates. I've been doing the clear protein now. The clear protein sits well on my stomach. Anything that's kind of creamy or anything that's whey concentrate or has any sort of whey concentrate in it is instant gas, bloating, diarrhea for me. It is huge problems. Eggs are another big offender. I see guys pounding a ton of egg whites. Eggs can really jerk your stomach around. Spices that you put on your foods can cause digestion issues. There are several spices that have high FODMAP, gas-producing acid reflux effects. Garlic would be an offender. Onion powder would be another offender. Pepper would be another offender. Hot sauces. A lot of guys love dumping hot sauces. Hot sauces have peppers and garlic in them. Typically, that's another thing that can really mess your gut up. So you have to take a look at stuff like that. I know it sucks. Eating bland food fucking sucks. But bodybuilding, the grind for bodybuilding, if you want to get big, kind of sucks. Your carbohydrate sources as well. There's only so much rice you can eat, especially when you're carb cycling. Like I've been up as high as 2,000 grams of carbs on some of my high days. That would be 20 cups of rice. There's no fucking way I'm going to be able to pound down 20 cups of rice. So I have to look at simple, easy to digest foods that I can get down. Fruit juices, candy, things like that. But, keep in mind those can also cause issues as well. But I would start with that. Orals, another good thing. Guys love running orals in the off season. Orals fuck your stomach up. Especially Anadrol. Anadrol is a bro favorite for an off season. Anadrol will wreck your stomach. I used to be able to tolerate it when I was younger. I can't anymore. It absolutely wrecks my stomach. That's another thing to look at. Tren is another one. Tren will certainly fuck up your stomach. From what I understand, it stimulates the vagus nerve and causes increased proton pump activity, which is going to cause increased acid in your stomach and increased acid reflux. It can also cause increased stimulation of the diaphragm, and you get these fucking hiccups and shit while you're on Tren. So your gear choices can also affect your digestion. So I would eliminate all of those things first before start adding digestive aids. All right, next one. This one's from YouTube, actually. This one's from Black Kaiser. He said, "Hey, Paul, is there a way to fix high creatinine levels for my EGFR? My creatinine was 124 millimoles per liter, 66 EGFR. If I recall, you had 1.32, which is 116 millimoles, a 66 EGFR as well. Were you able to get it back in range, and what supplements did you take?" Yeah, I have gotten it back up. I'm back up into the 90s now. I mean, it was just not perfect, but I am also diabetic, which being a diabetic is not great for your kidneys. So controlling my A1C is important for kidney health. Look, a lot of times you just need to take a break from the fucking gear, man. It just really just boils down to that. You got to back off the gear for a while. You got to make sure that you control your blood pressure. You might have to lower protein intake. You have to maybe back off the food a little bit, lose a little weight, let your body heal. Now, there are supplements that can help. The thing with kidneys, once the glomeruli, if I can fucking say it, and the kidneys are zorched, they're done. There's no coming back from it. Now, there are some things that can cause high creatinine levels that may not be related to kidney damage. For example, it could be just from hard training. It could be from taking creatine. I've seen creatine increase levels. But what I would say is, once you get above like that high 1.3, like 1.38, 1.39 or whatever, once you get up into the 1.4s, that's when it's time to start worrying and taking action. There might be something going on then. I know a lot of guys used to run astragalus, and astragalus really only works in super high doses. That's because the active ingredient that affects kidney health in astragalus is astragaloside 4, and it is very, very minimal in astragalus. You can find supplements that have astragaloside 4 isolated. I think Leviathan Nutrition, there's a plug for them. They have a product, their kidney product has astragaloside 4 in it. As far as I know, that's the only kidney health product that does have the astragaloside 4 isolated, which is the active ingredient in astragalus that helps kidney health. I have seen that improve numbers. Now, whether or not that has any permanent or long-term effect, who knows? Keeping your hydration in check, making sure that you're well hydrated, that will also help a bit. What I've noticed is that when guys run tren, I know there's really no evidence, as far as I've seen, researched evidence that tren is directly kidney toxic. While that may be true, I have seen creatinine and BUN levels get really screwed up when running high dose tren. I've seen the guys that seem to love tren. Now, it could be a result of other things that are going on. It could be a downstream effect. Who knows if it's actually kidney toxic? Could be, guys are blowing their blood pressure up. Guys are, there's a bunch of other. Tren does some weird shit to your blood work when you run it for a long time and at high enough doses. So I would probably steer away from tren if you're having kidney issues. And I would probably just back off the TRT for a while, back off the food a little bit. I know it's probably not the answer you want to hear. Get those in order. Let yourself recover. Let yourself heal. Let your body breathe a little bit, and then you can go back and see if things are back into a good spot where you can start to push again. All right, folks, that's all I got for you on this one. I hope you found this helpful. I appreciate each and every one of you. I love you all. I am happy to have this lifestyle, this bodybuilding lifestyle. I'm thankful for it. Bodybuilding is my community. I love all you bodybuilding folks, even the guys that don't agree with me. I love you too. Bodybuilding is awesome. We're all in this together. There are no team this or team that. And the guys that are out there trying to say, if you're doing this thing or that thing, you're on my side, and the other people that are or not, that's just silliness, man. We're all in this game together. We all want to get swole. We all want to make better versions of ourselves. We're all in this fight together. I love you folks. See you on the next episode. R.I.P. Ozzy. For coaching or consultations, head over to www.anabolicbodybuilding.com to book your spot today. I can help you with optimizing hormones, fat loss, muscle gain, physique, athletic performance, nutrition, and health. For more information, shoot me an email at bigp3rd@gmail.com.